Picture a dark forest in the 15th century, somewhere in Transylvania. Ancient, sprawling trees reach towards a somber sky, their branches intertwined like the bones of the dead. A cold wind pierces through, whispering unintelligible words through the leaves, and ahead, atop a rocky hill, a silhouette emerges. A castle, resembling a stone cage, looming menacingly over the endless forests. Within these grim walls lives a man whose name has become synonymous with cruelty and terror for some, and a symbol of unwavering will and heroism for others. This is Vlad III, Prince of Wallachia, born in Transylvania, whose name is forever etched in history as Vlad the Impaler, or, as most of the world knows him, Dracula. But who was he really? Was he truly a bloodthirsty monster who reveled in the suffering of his victims, or a cruel but just ruler, a warrior who, in the dark times of feudal fragmentation and the constant threat from the mighty Ottoman Empire, defended his land and his people at any cost? His story is a labyrinth of bloody facts and terrifying legends. We will try to find the truth amidst centuries of fear and fascination. Born in 1431 in the town of Sigosora, located in the heart of Transylvania, the future prince of Wallachia was named Vlad. His father was Vlad II Dracula, who at the time was the Prince of Wallachia and a member of the Secret Order of the Dragon. This chivalric order was created to defend Christianity and fight against the growing power of the Ottoman Empire. It was thanks to this order that the younger Vlad received his famous nickname, Dracula, which meant son of the dragon. In those times, it was not a frightening nickname, but rather an honorary title. His childhood was extremely harsh and unlike that of a prince. At that time, Wallachia was a buffer zone between the two largest world powers, the Ottoman Empire and the Kingdom of Hungary. To maintain independence, Vlad's father was forced to constantly maneuver, making and breaking alliances. The political climate was treacherous and unpredictable. At the age of just 11, Vlad and his younger brother Radu were handed over to the Ottoman Sultan as an act of confirming loyalty. This was a cruel custom where the children of rulers were held as hostages to guarantee their fidelity, a living promise of peace. Imagine yourself as a child growing up in the Sultan's palace, surrounded by your enemies. Every day could be your last, and any careless action by your father could cost you your life. Vlad and Radu lived in a gilded cage of constant fear and anxiety. While Radu, it is said, managed to adapt to the opulent, complex court life, Vlad, on the contrary, harbored deep-seated resentment and became even more hardened. He was a captive prince, stripped of his freedom and his home. He was forced to learn the Turkish language and study military affairs, all while observing the cruelty and cunning that prevailed in the Ottoman Empire. This environment taught him survival, patience, and, most importantly, the ruthless pragmatism he would later use against his own enemies. This captivity left a deep, indelible mark on his soul. It was a fusion of two opposing worlds, the world of chivalric honor and religious devotion, which he had inherited from his father, and the world of brutal, unyielding reality, which he faced in captivity. He understood that to survive in such a harsh world, one could not be weak. He had to be stronger than his enemies, capable of outmaneuvering and outfearing them. In this place, among enemies, the future Vlad the Impaler was forged, a man whose legacy would be defined by the shadows of his youth. Fate intervened brutally in Vlad's life while he was in captivity. In 1447, his father, Vlad II Dracula, was betrayed and murdered by the boyars of Wallachia. This revolt was supported by the Hungarian regent John Hunyadi, who saw Dracula as a traitor. A few weeks prior, his older brother, Mircea, was also murdered. He was blinded and then buried alive. For the 16-year-old Vlad, who learned of this, his world collapsed. He was the captive son of a dead king and the sole heir to a throne stained with his family's blood. All the hatred he had accumulated for years now had a concrete goal: revenge. With the support of the Ottoman Empire, which decided to use him as a puppet, Vlad returned to Wallachia for the first time in 1448. He managed to seize power, but his rule lasted only a few months. His enemies drove him out and he had to flee. Imagine him, a young prince who had only tasted power for a moment, once again becoming a homeless outcast, pursued by the enemies who had killed his family. But this failure did not break him. It only made him stronger. Instead of giving up, he studied his enemies, waited, and, most importantly, secured the support of Hungary, his former foe. This was a time of trials. Vlad hid, wandered across Europe, absorbed experience and tactics, and over time earned the trust of John Hunyadi. He became his most valuable ally in the fight against the Ottomans. Finally, in 1456, Vlad, with a powerful army, invaded Wallachia once again. This time he was prepared and determined. Imagine the young prince looking at a throne stained with the blood of his father and brother. This blood remained forever, and it was the price he paid to not lose power a second time. Vlad III the Impaler returned to the throne, but no longer as a puppet, but as a ruthless and experienced ruler. This was his second reign, and he swore that he would never lose the power that had cost him so much, and he was ready to do anything to ensure it. From this moment, his name would become a symbol not only of cruelty but also of absolute control over his land. Returning to the throne, Vlad the Impaler understood that his main enemies were not only the Turks but also his own nobility, the boyars who had betrayed his father. He decided to put an end to the instability once and for all and to consolidate his power. And for this, he chose the most terrifying but, as he believed, the most effective method, fear. The most famous and cruelest method of punishment he introduced was impalement. This method was not invented by Vlad, but he brought it to perfection. Victims were placed on a sharp wooden stake, and they slowly died in terrible agony for hours or even days. He did this publicly so that everyone could see the consequences of disobedience. Chronicles tell of forests of stakes, consisting of tens of thousands of victims, political opponents, traitors, and Turkish prisoners. But there was another side to his rule. Vlad sought to restore order and law. He brutally punished thieves, swindlers, and beggars. A legend tells of a golden cup that he left by a spring in the middle of a town. Anyone could drink from it, and no one dared to steal it because everyone knew. The price for theft was an immediate and brutal death. Crime in Wallachia fell to a minimum. During his reign, the roads became completely safe. Imagine walking down a road at night, knowing there are no criminals here because every thief is already on a stake. For some, he was a tyrant who reveled in human suffering. For others, a just and wise ruler. In essence, his cruelty was a tool with which he established stability in a fractured country. He suppressed internal conflicts, strengthened the economy, and made the state ready for war against an external enemy. It was this unwavering will and ruthless character that made him a formidable leader, capable of challenging even the most powerful empire of his time. It was a brutal game, and Vlad played it by his own rules. After consolidating his power within the country, Vlad the Impaler turned his attention to his main external enemy, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, who had conquered Constantinople, demanded a regular tribute from Vlad. This meant recognizing his suzerainty. In 1461, Vlad the Impaler made a bold and, according to many, reckless decision. He refused to pay the tribute. In response to this defiance, Sultan Mehmed II sent a huge army to Wallachia. Instead of fighting in an open field, Vlad chose a tactic that is now called a scorched earth. He ordered villages to be burned, wells to be poisoned, and crops to be destroyed to deprive the Ottomans of food and drinking water. Vlad constantly attacked the enemy by surprise, using guerrilla tactics day and night. The most famous episode of this war was the Forest of the Impaled. In 1462, When Mem II's army approached the capital of Wallachia, Targovist, they came upon a horrifying sight. On the approaches to the city was a huge forest of tens of thousands of Ottoman and Bulgarian prisoners impaled on stakes. This forest was so large that it stretched for several kilometers, and its smell was carried for many miles. The Sultan was stunned and was forced to retreat. Even the cruelest ruler in the world was shocked by such brutality. Vlad the Impaler showed that he was not afraid of death and was ready to do anything to defend his land. He was not just a ruler, but an ideological leader who, by his example, showed the way to freedom. But this freedom had to be paid for with blood. This was his last great victory. The victory over the Turks was a Pyrrhic one. Although Mem II retreated, he did not abandon his plan to conquer Wallachia. The Sultan began to support Vlad's younger brother, Radu the Handsome, who had remained at the Ottoman court and was more loyal to the Sultan. In 1462, while Vlad was on a campaign, Radu invaded Wallachia at the head of a large Ottoman army. In the battle, Radu was supported not only by the Turks but also by many Wallachian boyars who hated Vlad for his cruelty. Vlad's army was exhausted, and his allies betrayed him. He retreated to Poenary Castle, but even there he did not find safety. Legend has it that his first wife, upon learning of the enemy's approach, threw herself from the tower into the Argesh River, preferring death to captivity. Vlad was forced to flee, leaving his homeland. He sought refuge in Hungary, but his former ally, King Matthias Corvinus, instead of providing him with support, took him into custody. This began the years of his imprisonment. He spent over 12 years in captivity in Hungary. During this time, Radu the Handsome ruled Wallachia as a puppet of the Sultan. In 1476, Vlad was released from prison. King Matthias decided to use him again as a tool in the fight against the Ottomans. Vlad returned to Wallachia, and he managed to reclaim the throne. But this was his third and final reign. It lasted only a few months. At the end of 1476, he died in battle, but the circumstances of his death remain a mystery. According to one version, he died in battle against the Turks. According to another, he was killed by his own boyars, who feared his return. His head was cut off and sent to Mem II as proof of his death. The location of his burial is also still unknown. Vlad the Impaler left behind not only the glory of a ruthless warrior, but also unsolved mysteries. His short but incredibly rich life became the basis for numerous legends that turned him into a mythical figure. The story of Vlad the Impaler is not just a tale of a cruel ruler. It is a story of how a man, shaped by harsh conditions, uses fear as a tool for survival and struggle. He was a warrior who fought for his country's independence and a ruler who tried to establish order and justice in a world that was falling apart. His life, filled with victories, betrayals, and mysteries, eventually transformed him into a mythical figure who lives on in legends and books. Today, his name is associated with horror and blood, but his story reminds us that even in the darkest of times, one can find the strength to fight. Vlad the Impaler is a symbol of unwavering will and determination. His cruelty is not just his personal trait, but a reflection of the cruelty of the world he lived in. The story of Vlad the Impaler leaves many questions. Who was he really? A hero or a villain? A defender of his people or a tyrant? Perhaps he was both. And perhaps it is this duality that makes his story so captivating. Thank you for being with us. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This helps us create more interesting content for you. Write in the comments about which other historical figure or event you would like to see in the next video. Your ideas are very important to us.